on this so I can know. See, as soon as I start saying I wish they had a countdown, it goes faster than it ever has gone. Get your shit together at Google Hangouts. Seriously, you got to make the pre-roll a lot better for these things. Welcome to the Reason Reborn, episode 5. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you guys out there who celebrated. We're giving you that's on Tuesday, November 21st, even though Thanksgiving is not until Thursday. But it's fine. We won't see you then because we'll all be doing stuff, I'm pretty sure. So hope you enjoy your holiday. I'm here, of course, with my co-host, Cardiac Sumo, as always. Say hello to the people.
How's it going, you beautiful Indian killing people? That's what we're celebrating, right?
Murder those Indians. Thanksgiving was not for murdering Indians. It was taking the kindness of Indians and saying, "Oh, these people are nice. We should probably murder them and take their country down the line." So that this was the precursor. This wasn't the actual act of, taking the country from Indians. This was the act of befriending them, finding out all their sweet people, and then I guess the United States used hood tactics like, "Oh, you're nice. You're a bitch." Nice people are bitches. This is like thug them out of their country, basically.
Just want to throw that out there because I feel like, strangely enough, this is probably the first year in a long time I haven't heard anybody reference the whole murder of the Indians.
Oh, don't worry. You're going to get a reminder of that anyway, because it's funny. Before we got on, we were talking about being into sports and not being into sports. And fun fact, football, NFL now has made it a thing that from now until the foreseeable future, whenever they decide to stop, the Washington Redskins will play on every Thanksgiving. So that, which is the most funniest thing. And of course, the first time they played on Thanksgiving, guess who they played? The Cowboys. Because that's to have the Cowboys versus the Indians. Come on.
How petty can you be, though? Like, I respect it. It's a level of pettiness that you wouldn't think would happen in real life.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. I mean, it's American tradition to kind of be deaf to things, and not really see. Like, I mean, hey, and mind you, guys, I'm actually a Washington Redskins fan. And I am an advocate of them changing their name because it's like, who cares about the name? I just want the team to stop being horrible because they suck. So, like, whatever. But remember, sensitivity and respect is something we're not a fan of that in this country. Anyway, so we already started off the episode offending a bunch of people. I know. Because I'm sure a lot of people who I know who are Redskins fans watch this and they're going to be mad at me, but whatever. I mean, come on, dude. Who cares about the goddamn name?
They grew up with that name, man.
Yeah, when we grew up with the Washington Bullets, guess what? They ain't the Washington Bullets no more. We walk around the Washington, D.C. area wearing Wizard shirts, screaming about, "Let's go, John Wall and the Wizards." So you'll get over it. Trust me, if they change the name. Yeah. It's funny, too, because I know you're not into sports, but the reason they changed the name of the Bullets was hilarious, too. Long story short, this was around the time where Washington, D.C. was the murder capital of the United States. And somebody in the local government said, calling ourselves the Bullets don't fit right with the imagery that we project with all the violence in D.C. People resisted, but they decided to change the name. Then the people voted. They put it to a public vote for the name. The people voted for Wizards. And since then, we've been the Washington Wizards. Nobody's complained. So, yeah, the argument that you can't change the team's name because it's what we grew up with and it's their identity is some bullshit because people are still buying the merchandise from the team regardless of what you call them. So, yeah. So that was one tangent. So let's go to topics. We only really have one topic because we wanted to keep it like kind of as short as possible for the holiday. At least I suggested we do that, but I don't think this topic is going to make it very short because it's a very weighted topic and it's really crazy. Actually, let me start with the whole tax reform thing, just really quick. So, if you haven't heard, the Republicans' version of the new tax reform bill has passed, and they're lining up to vote for the Senate tax reform. There may be a snag in that because while they do both have different things in it, one thing that the president wants in it is that he wants to roll back and repeal certain aspects of the Affordable Care Act, better known to most people as Obamacare, which a lot of people think may tank this bill as it's tanked the healthcare bills that he's tried to get passed because of the things he put in it. What is your thought on this whole situation?
First of all, I don't mind the name Obamacare. I know a lot of people hate that. I like it. It's cute. But I can't help but I don't want to say feel bad, but I guess laugh a little bit at the Republicans trying to cut a deal with Trump standing over their shoulders saying shit that undermines said deals. There was a lot of issues with bringing him in and using him as a tool to kind of get what they want. The issue is that he's so fucking volatile you can't really control him, which I think is what they're experiencing every time try to reach across the aisle a little bit and cut a deal. He's like, oh, fuck Obama though, let's do this shit. I don't think they're quite expecting it, and they don't seem able to deal with it as well as they probably thought they could have. It's funny.
It is funny because they just don't seem to have a handle on parenting, which is what they're doing. This guy's a child. He's irrational. He's off the cuff. I mean, we just discussed it last week. They had to have a committee question different government officials on whether or not they would be able to handle the situation if, President Trump illegally asked for a nuclear strike or he tried to hit the button and send out nukes. That's not a common thing. It's not something that's happened in decades. It's weird. It's like you have this guy who just, for the life of him, does not know how to play the game of politics. He's very good at sowing dissension and misdirection, but when it comes to actually doing real business, he sucks at it. He does goofy things. And I still don't understand how anybody could, one, be proud that they have voted for him and that they support him, and two, how the United States, government can function under him, knowing that, no matter what, he's going to do some crazy shit that's going to even undermine the people who think they control him. It's just dumb.
It was definitely one of my biggest fears with him, because it's one thing if you just have a guy who you disagree with or even is somewhat malevolent, but this guy, you can't even reasonably predict the kind of things he'll do. Like if I was talking to a more conservative person and we disagreed as to how to deal with, commerce and shit, I feel like I could kind of at least predict their viewpoints or, predict the type of things they would do. I don't really know what the fuck Trump will do in general. He's just this combustible little orange firecracker or something. He scares me most because he's not predictable. And a lot of people said that as though it was a good thing. Like, yeah, he's unpredictable. He'll keep our enemies abroad, on their toes. He's keeping me on my toes, and I don't think that's the point. Like, I should not wonder if my president is sane.
No, it really, really bothers me because I just like I didn't put this on the list, but he's declared North Korea now as basically a terrorist state and has dropped all these different sanctions on them. And it's just weird because it's like you're really pushing for a fight. It's like, why are you pushing for a fight with these people? Like, you're being baited by a guy who knows how you are, who knows that you can't back down to having something said about you. And it's like everybody, I'm sure there's people around here who's telling him, This is what they're doing. They're trying to get you to react. Calm down. And he still jumps at it regardless. It's like, I mean, again, going back to the hood thing, he actually has kind of hood logic. Like, he stepped on my shoes. It's okay, dude. He said he's sorry. Nah, fuck that. He stepped on my shoes. Like, type of shit. Like, dude, calm yourself down. What the fuck you want to get into a fight for over some shit like this? It's not that big of a deal. Calm down, but
I think comparing him to that is disrespectful to hood logic, honestly.
Because at least because you stepped on my goddamn shoes. I paid a lot of money for these goddamn things.
You could even dig further and say, part of the reason they're so volatile in the hood is because you can't risk disrespect too much. If it makes you look weak, you'll become a target, which risks physical violence. There's been, plenty of books and shit on stuff like that. But with Trump, it just doesn't make any sense because the type of things he responds to could not possibly affect him in most cases.
Yeah, no. Kim Jong-un calling him crazy. I mean, he ain't lying, but beyond that, what is it going to do? That man's not going to jump. It's like everybody in the world knows reality is that North Korea is not going to set off a nuclear war because they're not going to try to set off any type of war because they know it would be a losing effort, especially since China is not 100% backing them and willing to engage in combat with their enemies because they know their enemies owe them a lot of money and it's just not that type of situation. That's not what they're looking for. So it's like he's not dumb. He's trying to bait Trump into doing something dumb first so he can be justified in doing something dumb or at least be able to play the victim and have the world be like, look at the bully United States, what they're doing. And it's like Trump, I called him Chump. Yeah, that's a good name. Trump is just so fucking oblivious to that fact. It's like, what's going on?
Dealing with North Korea can be a complex issue, and Trump can't even understand the simple, let alone the complex or nuanced. It's a lot of power for a guy who doesn't seem to know anything about the world.
Yeah, speaking of nuance, so LeVar Ball, who our president has been into a running Twitter and public fight with, sort of, although LeVar Ball said on his interview on CNN last night there is no fight between him because as far as he's concerned, he don't care what that man says. I didn't watch all of the interview. I just watched clips because I can't stand LeVar Ball. I'm not one of those people who excuse his outlandish behavior just because he's in his children's life. By the way, Black America, I need y'all to stop excusing people and their bullshit just because they happen to do what they're supposed to do. So what? He's a father to his kids. Damn right he should be a father to his kids. But all men should be. But that's...
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that because I heard of him and saw him one time when he made an appearance on WWE, and I thought, wow.
That was so stupid.
It really pissed me off because I'm like, this dude came in and made a joke of this entire situation. He's out here doing karate moves and shit, and I was like, all right, I don't know who this fucker is, but I don't like him. So it's interesting for you to say why he might get some support, because I remember thinking, like, I don't know who this is or why he's famous. Because, again, I guess I don't follow sports.
Yeah, no.
Some basketball player's dad or something.
Exactly. His son is a really good basketball player who got drafted high by the LA Lakers. He was a really good college basketball player, and that's where he got into the limelight because he would say stupid things like, like in my day, I could beat Michael Jordan. Which everybody laughed at. It was like, oh, LeVar, you're so crazy. But then he kept saying crazier things like that because people would cover it. Basically, he would say stupid, outlandish, crazy things, and the press would eat it up, and they found him an entertaining thing. And it's funny because this is kind of a referendum on why Trump and some of his supporters get away with the whole fake news thing is that this became a news phenomenon. It's like, what would LeVar say? What crazy shit is this guy going to say in the media next? And it was like, you guys are giving serious press time just to hear this guy say stupid, goofy things. It's like, how is that reporting? How is that news? That's bullshit. It's like, this is what makes people feed that fake news thing. Because is it fake? No. But is it news? Hell no. It's some goofy, like, reality TV shit. Which, oddly enough, is how the president got his fame. Goofy reality TV shit. So it's just like, oh my, it's so dumb. But anyway, he did an interview with CNN, and he basically, had been in it with Donald Trump because he refused to give an apology about what happened with his son, his middle son, who was one of the kids who got arrested in China. China let him go because they said the president intervened, asked for a favor. Kids apologized. The father was like, "What? Who is Trump? I don't care. He ain't do nothing for me. So why do I need to apologize to him?" Basically, and that started off Trump on a Twitter rant about how, and this is the president of the United States, by the way, people saying this, saying how, wow, he's so ungrateful. I should have left them in jail. All because his dad won't apologize. He said he should have left these kids in jail for being so ungrateful. Kids apologize. His dad didn't apologize, but you want to leave him in jail because his father didn't give you his due, or whatever due you thought that you were owed as a president for doing your fucking job? Like, seriously.
I mean, that goes to show, we talked about it before, how I don't want to say fragile, but massive, I guess, his ego is. I mean, he didn't get thanks from this dude. And this is just a dude. Like, who the fuck is this guy really? He's just somebody's dad.
Yeah.
And as president, he didn't see that as beneath his attention. I mean, I'd say if I was president, I probably wouldn't have even noticed this motherfucker. But I would think like if a 6-year-old like in elementary school or something said some shit about Trump and it got on the news, he would go to that elementary school and start talking shit. Like he's such a whiny little bitch, to echo Bill Maher's words. But like the depths this dude will sink to address any slightest strike on his pride is ridiculous.
Yeah, see, my thing is, it's like, okay, if I'm president and this happened and somebody came to me, which I'm sure there were already government officials working anyway, because they know this kid, he has some fame due to the fact that his brother is an NBA player and his father has, for some odd reason, become a reality TV celebrity. So yeah, they're gonna be like, yeah, could you just let this kid go? I'm sure some government officials were like, President, would you sign off on asking for help? And he was like, sure, whatever.
But it teaches that hopefully kids didn't see that and pick up on what I'm about to say. But it teaches a terrible lesson about doing things for others. It's like, because even before this issue with that old fucker, he was expecting like gratitude well before that. He didn't just do it and then that was it. He was already like, anybody gonna thank me? Anybody paying attention to this? Look how awesome I am. And then when this happened, he's like, man, ungrateful. I should leave kids in. Well, I shouldn't say kids. I don't know how old they are, but
18, 19.
All right, so immature adults should just leave them in prison because they didn't say thank you. That teaches a terrible lesson to younger people about why you should do things for other people. You shouldn't be teaching the youth of America to do things so that they will get praise. They should do things because they are right, helpful, so on.
Yeah, it's the right thing to do. More importantly, it's your job as president to do things like that. Every other president has done stuff like that, and none of them have came out and was like, God, I wish somebody would say thank. I mean, he even came out before, after he did, and it's like, I wonder if these kids will thank him. The kids thanked him, and he's still fucking sore because the father wouldn't thank him. Like, really? First you had to beg for thanks, then you get the thanks. You didn't get it from one person, and you're mad? What?
Before we hop off, what did they do again? They stole something from
They
a
stole some
store.
sunglasses from a Louis Vuitton store.
Okay, so some really expensive sunglasses. 'Cause I remember,
Yeah.
I thought that's what I remember, but I was like, there's no way they went to this other country in this high profile way and stole fucking sunglasses.
Yeah,
Like,
no, they were Louis Vuitton, but in China they're set to take theft really, really serious regardless.
yeah,
So
I'm
and
not saying they should punish. I'm just saying, like, why would you even do that? They're sunglasses. They're not. It's not a fucking car. Like,
yeah, like I've said to other people before, it's like, yo, dude, the son of LeVar Ball, what's his name, Leangelo, dude, your brother's in the NBA. He has money. Could have just called him and told him to wire you some money so you can buy you and your friends some sunglasses if you really wanted those sunglasses.
plus
But
that's just jeopardizing your. Does he play? He plays for college now, or
right now, him and his friends are all indefinitely suspended from the team, and the campus officials are having an ongoing debate on whether or not they should make this a permanent thing, kick them off the team, or just suspend them for the year, maybe suspend them for a few games. They're pretty much in limbo their college careers right now because of this.
that's what I was thinking. Because I was like, why would you jeopardize your future over some sunglasses? That is very telling of a lack of maturity, especially
Yeah,
when you have a bunch of money in the family, like you said. But I feel like Trump's idiocy made us lose sight of how stupid their decision to do that was.
yeah. Like the issue of the lesson has been lost in this whole thing because instead of being this is what you should not do when you have like certain opportunities in life. I mean, say what you will about the way that college sports is structured. I've agreed with many people who have an issue with the fact that a lot of college students are out there playing for these schools that make multi-million dollars, but these kids can't make money while they're under scholarship. It's a stupid thing,
Right.
but at the same time, that does not excuse you to do something that could cause you issues. I mean, it's not just jeopardizing your college career; it's your reputation. Um, People will look at you in the future like, is this person a trustworthy person? How dumb is he to do this? Things like that. You put yourself in a bad spot, and you shouldn't do that just for some damn shades. But that's the lesson right there. It's like, be careful what you do, especially if you're going to go to a foreign country. Don't break the law there because you don't know what their laws are. Just because you get away with stuff here doesn't necessarily mean that you would get away with it there and you got lucky. But no, the whole thing is now you have the kid's father on CNN, who, by the way, basically frustrated the hell out of Chris Cuomo. Shout out to Don Lemon for taking the night off. He was smart. He was like, y'all want me to interview Hugh? Oh, I'm sick. Chris, have fun. Because he knew to duck that bullet. And it's just like you had this dude acting a fool, embarrassing your host, and talking shit about the president, who's now even extra pissed because now this dude's like got on national TV and called him out. And what makes it worse is like at the end of the interview, LeVar Ball they asked him, does he have anything final words for the president of the United States? And he goes, yeah, I certainly do. Happy Thanksgiving, Donald, and then smile. So he pretty much called you a jerk, jackass, buffoon for like 30 minutes and ends by giving you well wishes. That's as much as I hate him, I gotta give him props for that.
And this is the guy who has the president's attention. I haven't seen much of him, but I have seen little things like interviews here and there. I've never seen anything that was flattering of this motherfucker.
No. And
He's
he even said during the interview, think about this. He's thinking about me not giving him an apology. Don't you got better things on your agenda to worry about than me not apologizing to you? Like, you get words of wisdom from this guy who pretty much did nothing but exhibit himself as a crazy, like, deranged clown to a lot of people. He's schooling the president. Madness.
our president. It's fucking great.
It's fucking madness.
What
It's
a
just
what a time to be alive.
Even more so is being in this time, we're having a lot of social craziness go on. So we talked a little bit about Al Franken last week. Well, Al Franken was back in the news because there's a second allegation against him for sexual harassment. Not only that, but you still got the ongoing drama with Robert Moore, who's running for the Senate seat in Alabama, who people are still like really, really behind the idea of voting for this guy. And not only are the citizens of Alabama seemingly still trying to get this guy in office, but the president came out today and told the people of Alabama, and this isn't a word for word quote, but it's pretty much on target with what he said. There's no reason why you should want a liberal Democrat in office there. Let the people decide the vote. And besides, the guy denied what he did. So what's the problem? Basically, what's his attitude? So he's advocating a guy who came out also today. I mean, not today, but they went and dug into a book he wrote. By the way, I wish I would have remembered the title because you would have loved it because it had something to do with religion.
Like defending religious freedom. I remember that. Vaguely remember that.
It was like something to God, or
Gotta find it because I did remember seeing the title and like it did definitely catch my eye.
But he had a passage in there where he talked about meeting his wife, and apparently he pretty much had been keeping his eye on her since she was 15. And he saw her at some type of dance recital, thought her performance was amazing, and it as he said, it stayed with him, very much so. I don't know how old he was. I forget exactly how old they said he was at the time, but that's kind of creepy that you would say something like that. Like, yeah,
like 14 years older or something, right? So he would.
Yeah, she's 14, 15, but she was dancing so good. Go, girl. Like, yo, like I can't. Like, I'm 41, about to turn 42. Boo. I don't want to date somebody in their 20s. You're legal. All that, I don't know, because to me that separation of age and possible separation, I mean, the maturity thing, sure, you could be a very mature person in your 20s. Fair example, my co-host, the baby face man himself. Yeah,
can all grow a massive beard like you guys. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. You'll get your old man beard one day. Give it time. But no, it's just like I just don't feel like I would like necessarily relate or something. I just don't. I would rather have someone closer to my age. I would feel like a creep, to be quite honest. I would feel like I'm just trying to like recapture my youth or something by getting with an old, younger. It's like, yeah, I don't want to be a father figure. I'm sorry. I really don't.
Not the kind of father. Before I touch that, his memoir is called "So Help Me God: The 10 Commandments, Judicial Tyranny, and the Battle for Religious Freedom." I definitely remember stopping and reading this title like 3 times over because I was like, "I didn't know the title."
It is, especially for somebody who's watching fucking children. Like, seriously.
So when I first saw that headline, I was like, gross. But then I always try to be charitable to other people, give them the benefit of the doubt a little bit. So when I first saw that, I was like, that's pretty terrible sounding. But, maybe he saw her at a park and he couldn't tell how old she was. Some people look a little, I mean, it would still be a stretch, but I always try to give I always start from the most charitable position and work my way downward. I'll say it like that. And then it was like, nope, you saw her at like a dance recital, I think it was.
Yeah, he said she was 15 at the time. He knew her age.
Again, at first I just read the headline, so I was hoping the details would help him out there, but they were just even more damning than I would have thought. And the fact that he put it in a book and didn't see any problem with it, I
Yeah.
don't know what to think about that. It's not like somebody dug up some secret. This is like a book he released. It was a memoir, so he clearly didn't understand that this is a problem. At least even then, whenever this fucking book came out, I don't know when it was released, but
Yes, it is very, very creepy, but the president approves. Hey, put him in because once a filthy liberal coming into office, we'd rather have a filthy old man. It's insane. I mean, I don't get it. It's like you look over, to the quote unquote filthy liberal side, and Al Franken's catching fucking hell right now. It's like people are mad at him because the second allegation came out and he hasn't said anything yet. People are like, why you ain't saying that now? What's going on? What are you doing? Why are you still here? People are looking for blood with him. Then you had another allegation for John Conyers, Democratic representative from the state of Michigan, who apparently, I was reading more into this. Not only is this the first allegation that he's got, where he settled, but he's settled numerous times on allegations of sexual harassment from women. So he's a serial offender, possibly of this.
and yeah, I think probably touched on it a little last week, but there's a very drastic difference between the way the whatever liberal side and the right is reacting to this type of shit. I mean, it's a night and fucking day, really. There's a lot of similarities in some cases between the left and the right, but on this issue, it's not even close. The fact that Roy Moore is still a viable candidate to people is astonishing to me. It shouldn't be because Trump was a viable candidate for president and is president, so I should not be surprised, but I guess I just thought Trump was a very weird exception to the rule. There was something unique about his level of insanity that allowed him to get away with that shit.
Yeah, you wouldn't expect lightning to strike twice, that's for sure. But
Nope.
now it just seems like they're basically willing to stand outside holding a goddamn lightning rod in both hands and, strapped to their back, hoping to get hit by stuff like this. Because it's fine to that. It's funny, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about when we were going to discuss these topics. It's just like the weird reactions to this, because Trump, of course, as soon as he saw the Al Franken thing, he jumped immediately on it, was going hard at Franken, talking about how bad he is, he needs to quit, look at how bad the liberals are, blah blah blah, like going on his usual Twitter rant when he smells potential blood, even though he ends up sounding like a fucking idiot, because as people could check him, it's like, dude, you were accused multiple times of this. How are you going to try to chin check somebody else for this type of behavior when that's a part of who you are? But it's just very weird because it's like the Republican reaction. I would say the reaction to Roy Moore was a lot more muted. It's like people finally came out, like McConnell, saying no, I don't think he should be a candidate, and things like that. And you had Ryan saying this is disturbing, but it took them a while to finally say something. Whereas with Franken, it's like people already, Ryan's talking about we need to do reform in the Senate to protect victims now.
Right.
Even though Franken never did anything to anyone in the Senate. Not saying that makes it better, but it's like it was never a political situation with him where he was at work as a senator doing this stuff. It was when he was on SNL. But you have the reaction, it's a lot more vibrant when it's a Democrat, but when it's a fellow Republican, they're just kind of silent. And I find it. Does it bother you that this is how it is? Like nobody wants to say anything until the opposition is the one that's being targeted.
So, it's somewhat human nature. I have a bit of a bias. We can all if we pay attention, catch ourselves being a little bit more unfair or harsh with people we disagree with. But this isn't just that like subconscious tick that you might not notice. This is really fucking blatant, especially in Trump's case. But like, again, we all have some biases that we might catch ourselves, in the middle of. But I don't know how to look at that situation. And it's all up and down the board with these guys. If it's, I think I touched on a little bit last week with this whole, you know, all parties have a bit of tribalism, but the Republicans have a strong sense of tribalism, a really strong sense of loyalty, party loyalty. I think this is at least part of the problem with this type of situation. The fact that you cannot denounce a motherfucker for whatever the charge might be, and it's different for different people, but that you can't just denounce this type of behavior at all very well is astonishing, really. I think it hurts people's faith in the political process. You have one political party that is just this blatantly more concerned about party loyalty than they are about the welfare of the country and its citizenry. A lot of people don't believe in political effectiveness, and you see shit like this. And I was looking at that FCC, the net neutrality thing, shit like that. You see stuff go on that really makes you not want to believe in the government. It's saddening.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy too. I'm going to touch on that close to the end of the net neutrality thing, because I find that totally appalling that they're continually trying to repeal that and make this a thing. But yeah, it just, for me, it's just like, did it bother me? I won't say it bothered me as a liberal, quote unquote, to hear that Al Franken was involved in some stuff like this. Hell, it bothered me as well to hear George Takei, an actor, was involved in this. It bothered me because these are people who I thought were respectable, people. And it's just like, all of a sudden, wow, I just hear like somebody who I respected is possibly or is a creep. That's not cool. So yeah, my first reaction was, come on, not you, Al. But after getting over like me being upset over that, it's like, probably need to go. You probably need to like chill, because can't do that. That's just not, we can't have that. Representing us.
I sort of remember feeling the same way, and it goes to that bias. I remember when I first saw these headlines, I was already in my mind, at least weekly, defending him a little bit, or giving him more of the benefit of the doubt than I probably would have, somebody on the right. I'm not saying that I'm just so unfair that I wouldn't look into it or anything, but I certainly felt worse about it with Franken.
Yeah,
I didn't read the decay thing, but
that's just like,
fan of his anyway. So
I just find him like entertaining, like with his tweets and stuff. He says some hilarious things. I wasn't a Star Trek fan.
I follow him on Facebook. I think he has a lot of fun puns and shit. But
yeah, he's a good follow on social media for sure. But yeah, it's like,
to your point, despite the fact that it was a little upsetting, we did not excuse it in any way. Once it was, you look into it, you see that it's bad. It's bad. Not great. Not anywhere near the level of acceptance is on the right. I'm wondering how, I haven't seen any numbers on this, but how much just the Republican base across the board, regular citizens feel about this compared to the politicians, because at least the politicians, they're really trying to maintain power and maintain that party loyalty. I wonder how their constituents and stuff feel about, well, I guess Roy Moore feels pretty good.
Yeah, because in the state of Alabama, he's still, after crunching the numbers and doing polls, people still seem to give him a majority to win. Now, if that's going to pan out to a win come election day, we'll see.
Have they done any analysis as to why that is? Is it just we don't want a liberal? Is it?
Sadly, that's generally been the thing. It's been like, we think what he did is bad, but we'd rather have a Republican in office. for most people,
Okay.
which to me is ridiculous because it just shows like how much things have gotten to the point where it's not about putting the best person in office. It's just, you don't want to see the other side win, and it's like that's kind of sad. You would rather put up with a guy who's that offensive than to see your side lose because you want to be spiteful to the other side. I mean, but again, we saw it with the presidency. A lot of people hated Hillary, hated liberals, so let's vote for Trump.
I still want to see 10 years removed if people can still justify the level of hatred they have for Hillary now. But that loyalty thing is crazy because to those people who don't want, a liberal or Democrat or whatever leading them, I would have to ask why. What is the problem other than they're not a Republican? Like what is it that you fear they're going to do exactly? I'm genuinely curious what the fear is there.
They're going to send transgender and gay people to your house so they can get married on your lawn and allow black people to do bad things to your daughters and sons. And I don't know, because it's a weird thing. Like, I'm fine with the Republican as long as he's not an idiot. I just need you not to be a fucking like lunatic and an idiot like our president. I just need you to do the right thing. Like do right by us, and I'm good. I don't care what your label is.
If I was to, I wouldn't just disagree with somebody on principle, but I think I've mentioned I'm not as inclined to agree with Republicans, mostly because they've largely been captured by religious zealotry, and they have a level of fiscal conservatism that I find a little troubling in some cases. But those are reasons, right? Like, I'm not just saying it because they're Republican. Fuck them. Like, if they have a reasonable argument, I could see supporting them just fine. I would generally like, if anybody there is a conservative listening, I would like to know what the problem would be on principle with voting for a liberal or Democrat or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's like that religious moral standard that they just want to maintain. Like, and it's funny because it's more stereotypes than anything that a lot of them hold to. It's just like, the wall thing.
True. Oh, okay. So like minority groups, I guess then, or
but it's like that's just one of the things. Like minority thing, the wall thing. The whole abortion is bad because it's against God. Is always the rally cry around that. Liberals are going to allow people to do whatever they want, and just the weird thing. It's like that's not what it means to be a quote unquote liberal. It just means that you kind of have a more progressive way of thinking. You're open to a lot of different ideas beyond traditional ones.
Right.
It's not that creepy, but let a lot of them tell it. You're just betraying the law of God and the land all in one, and it's just like.
And there are certainly problems to have with liberals, but I don't think a lot of these people are approaching it in any extremely intelligent way. They're just like, these gun-hating, God-hating liberal pussies can't, take control of the government. Like, they're not sound reasons. They tend to make a straw man of liberals and then attack that straw man. If even that, because a lot of times they don't even do that. They just say liberals and use the term as an insult, which is lazy. And
it is. It's as lazy as WWE fans are. Yes, I'm going to call y'all out because I did it on Twitter last night about your fucking chants. Why are you still screaming "you suck" to Kurt Angle? Seriously.
Because he sucks.
Why is that a thing? That was a thing like 10 years ago.
I mean, it's catchy as fuck. I mean,
It's no, it's not a thing anymore. Like seriously, is that the best you can do? You can't think of anything else but to rehash shit from back like before he left WWE. This guy was gone from WWE for a minute. This is the only thing you can say.
You suck for leaving. I don't know.
No.
I don't say.
And it bothers the John Cena thing bothers me too. I hate that John Cena sucks shit now. It was cute when they first started it, but it's like y'all just ran that into the ground.
Yeah, now it's more you just do it because it is done. It's a habit they've put up. There's no reason behind it.
Yeah, that and booing Roman Reigns too. Get over that as well. God damn.
He's a hardworking young man. You need to leave that guy though.
Yeah, fucking idiots. All of you crazy people, you're driving me crazy in this country with this whole weird, like, wanting to fight because if you're one thing, if I label you one thing, I can't like you. Bullshit.
Yeah, but we're seeing a ton of these come out, week after week with a lot of people, and it's troubling on many regards. First of all, I'm sure women in this country are not comfortable with what they're seeing about the country. I don't even know how to phrase that. Where the fuck am I going with this? I'm sure there's a bit of a panic building as we see that even people on the liberal side like Franken and Takei and shit can be prone to doing bad things.
Oh no, what we're seeing though, I hate to say this way, but what we're seeing is something that's always been. Because no matter what side of the fence you've fallen on, this is just one of those things where it's like, sure, you can say you're a Democrat or liberal, but you can be racist as well. Yeah, you could be a Democrat or liberal, but you could be sexist as well and do vile things too, because it's just some behavior that can go beyond just being a certain political demographic,
Yeah, I'm sure it was always there. It's just, once you start seeing things pop up in the news like that, it can cause a bit of social and public panic. Like you might reference the sexual assault against children panic that happened. When the fuck was that? Probably a couple decades ago by now. Just, you start seeing the shit in the news, and then you have this like overwhelming sense of it all the time, and you have this fear,
all right,
which can lead to, well, social panic on the one hand, but it can also lead to like bad laws, bad movements. It's to have panic in the air can be a bad thing and has been in history. I'm not saying that to dismiss that there is a problem. I'm just saying that when there is a problem and we start seeing it all the time and it's ever present in our minds, that can cause other problems too.
Yeah, I could say from experience, it could also cause weird debates to happen. It's funny because I got off early and I met up with a friend who was like saying how they wanted to go out and have a drink. So I was like, all right, I'm off early. I'm not doing shit. Let's go to like a place and have a drink and just talk, just hang out. And this was a female, and she brought up the whole situation with the sexual abuse, and she was asking me what did I think about it, and I was like, yeah, it's a pretty crazy thing. And basically, she goes to me, well, it's funny to me because all I keep thinking about is why y'all saying stuff like this now? Like, why you feel the need to say it after all these years? Why didn't you just leave it alone if you didn't say it when it happened? And that struck me as odd coming from a woman.
Okay, I misheard. I thought you were the speaker saying that.
Okay. No, because like me, it's like, okay, I understand the question, but at the same time, like I know for me as a male, I can't ask that question because I don't know how it feels to be in that situation, at least from a female's perspective. But I found it weird that a female would say that and kind of being able to understand more. And it even made me even more, in shock when they told me, I had someone try to force themselves on me recently. And it's like, so, and they were like, I didn't say anything. And I was just sitting there like, wait, you're questioning these people for not saying anything, but at the same time, you've had like years go by when someone tried to force themselves on you. You didn't say anything, but you have a problem with them not saying anything immediately.
Right.
Like it was a weird, like, and I really couldn't say anything because I didn't want to be insensitive, but at the same time, in my mind, I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? It's like, this is a part of what I don't understand, why women don't, say it. So I can't judge them for it, but at the same time, I'm not judging her, but I just found it very, very weird that she, having gone through that, she wasn't more sensitive to the situation. It just struck me as really, really odd. It's a weird. It's kind of weird because I've even seen another person say, they're scared that all of these allegations are going to lead to a situation where as soon as somebody's found out to be a liar, people are going to try to bury the whole situation again, even though not everybody out there is lying. It's a very, I don't know, and it's just the way it's always been. I guess I don't know. Have you ever had experience with this?
Well, in her case in particular, it does, on its face, it feels a little hypocritical. Like I said, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, at least in that type of argument. So you never know what her psychological situation is, right? She could be, what's the word I'm looking for? She could be like shutting down around that issue, so kind of minimizing its effect on other people because she's kind of. I'm not her psychologist, by the way. I'm not,
I understand.
I don't want anybody out there to think I'm like some sort of psychic trying to read her mind, but that is one possibility where it's like maybe that bothered her a bit and she's like shutting down around that sort of issue. And because she's sort of cut herself off there, not taking other people's problems in a similar way very seriously. I feel like I've seen things sort of like that before where, I tell myself like this type of shit doesn't bother me. And if the same type of shit happened to somebody else, why should it bother them or why, so I could see what type of thing might lead to that. I mentioned not being her psychologist. I think one of the problems is a lot of us act like we have a psychology degree or some shit. Like all these people who say, why didn't they bring it up before? I mean, if you're asking that, you're probably not thinking about the question hard enough. There's plenty of reasons. First of all, it wasn't, right now we're seeing in the media this large support for women in this issue, but it wasn't always like that. I mean, it was pretty unreasonable expectations for women, and we a lot of times defaulted to not believing them. And there's also, just some people find it embarrassing. They feel like they've been victimized. There's a lot of reasons that I could think of why somebody would not say anything for a while. It's one of those questions that always surprises me because it shouldn't be a question. It's not really all that surprising. If you really stop for a second, imagine what it's like to be another human being. Try to imagine yourself in somebody's situation as them a little bit. Leverage your sense of empathy. It's not that confusing as to why somebody might hesitate or not share it or, try to bury it. We all have things that, bother us that maybe we try to shove down a bit, right? Maybe not, for you and I, we're men, so sexual assault probably isn't part of that. But I know I've had stuff emotionally that bothered me that I've at least tried to shove down and ignore. That's generally I was going to say a reasonable response. It's a normal response. Maybe it's not the most reasonable per se, but it's not an alien thing to do. I think if people really tried to inhabit others' feelings and really pay attention to how they react to things on an emotional level more, they wouldn't find this type of thing confusing. It's probably very similar to the types of things you do yourself in your own life, maybe just in a different context.
Yeah, and it's funny because I kind of talked about some of that because I, called back to the time like growing up where you weren't supposed to talk about your issues, not just as a man. I mean, as a man, it was like, whoa, you showing emotion, stop being a little bitch,
Right.
type of thing. You know, back when I was a little kid, you would get beatings. You know, you would get punished for being emotional as a kid, as a male kid sometimes, but not just that. In other areas, like I was saying to her, like, well, remember how like it used to be with certain family issues? Because I remember personally a lot of family issues where we've had people who've done some questionable things, including potential sexual assault against female members of the family. But it was the reaction kind of was like, okay, this happened. We talked about it. Let's not discuss anymore. Don't bring it up. Just act like it never happened, type of thing. You know.
I knew someone similar situation. There was like family member, and the family, you know, I don't want to say covered it up, but covered it up. You know, it's and that might be in some parts a cultural thing, but this notion that the family didn't want to be embarrassed by what happened here, so they covered up. There's another reason right there that I didn't even think of, even though I know a person who went through that sort of thing. There's many reasons why you can imagine somebody not saying something.
Yeah, it was so weird in my family that I remember family members saying things like, "You should never have male and female siblings or cousins sleep in the same room because who knows what the guy is going to do." It's like, what? It's like it was like almost an expected thing, and it just creeped me out when I heard that said, even as a young age, because it was like, why would I do that to my cousin or my sister? But I guess it happened, um, a couple of times with particular family members that's just the way. But instead of handling like saying no, this family member needs to stay away, they still kept this family member kind of close, but would make, you know, take actions to limit his access to situations, which was just like looking back at now, it's like, no,
Right.
instead of doing something, it's like you're glossing over the situation.
Right.
So
And
it's
imagine that from the victim's point of view too. You have this person who, I guess it depends on what really happened there as far as the details, but just generically saying assaulted you. Your family is not helping you. You know, you can't really rely on anybody on the outside. The person who assaulted you is always there, being kept in close proximity by your family. You know, and if you're young, then your family is really the people that you rely upon most, and they're the ones that are complicit in this, right? So it's like, where can you turn if not them? And you obviously can't turn to them. I can't even imagine, you know, really being in that situation. That's like if somebody stabbed me and then my dad was like, "No, you guys are gonna be best friends. He's gonna hold this knife. You guys are gonna be buddies. You know, no big deal. Fuck it." Like, that is a crazy situation to be in, but it's not that uncommon, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, and like with these women, with a lot of these like famous people doing this to them, that's how I kind of imagine it in a way, especially like say the Harvey Weinstein things. Like this guy has an incredible amount of control in Hollywood, and he could make or break your career. And you're trying to live out your dream as an actress, and he comes at you like this, and yeah, the wheels start to turn. And it's like I should say something, but at the same time, if I say something, I'll never get a chance to do what I want to do in life. So it's like it's like I'm gonna lose like my opportunity, my chance at a career and happiness because I don't want this guy to get away with what he do. What do I do? It's like it builds a confusing thing because this guy is protected by people. People are willing to blackball. I mean, there were a couple of actresses where you look at like the people who accused them and you look over their careers, you're like, that person never took off like people thought they were. They had a like big moment, like Kate Beckinsale being an X-Men, Jean Grey. A lot of people thought she was going to take off, and it's like, no, she ended up being the woman relegated to just doing the vampire movies, and is things like that. Rose McGowan, whether you believe her story or not, look at like her coming out and then look back at her career. She never really took off beyond B type material besides grindhouse. She never really got big opportunities to like try to sell. Like you could say, well, maybe she sucks as an actress, maybe she does suck as an actress, but we never really got a chance to find out.
Right. And that's another good point too. Is people say, why do you say anything after all these years? After all these years, you are in a much different situation. If you're a young adult just starting your career, maybe you don't want to risk that. If you're a child, maybe you didn't have the power at the time, and even beyond your personal circumstance, throughout your life, society changes a lot too. And I feel like people don't appreciate that. I remember getting into this huge argument with this girl on Facebook once because I shouldn't say it was huge. She was wrong and I was awesome. It was this article where this teacher had hit a student, and they said, what is the world coming to? The world is so terrible, blah blah blah. And I was thinking, in my parents' generation, at least in Jamaica, at least, it wasn't uncommon. It was expected. You're acting like it was so long ago that teachers were allowed to beat students in school. It wasn't. It was a generation or two ago, maybe.
Yeah, I could say in my generation, you weren't necessarily allowed to give them full beatings with belts or anything, but right. Teachers would wrap your hand with a ruler in elementary school.
So being disobedient. So she went on this rant about how terrible the world is becoming, and I was like, the fact that this is even news is proof that the world has changed. What are you talking about? And it could be a factor in this, sexual case here, where we care more about this sort of thing, so maybe they feel more comfortable talking about it. It's like asking 30 years ago, why didn't somebody come out as gay? It probably wasn't as easy at the time to do that.
Yeah, if you came out as gay 30 years ago, it would be quote unquote illegal to lynch, hang, burn a gay person, but gay people would be lynched, hung, and burned. Just like after slavery, sure, it was illegal to lynch a man, but plenty of black people got lynched and hung, even though slavery had been over for decades. Up until even now, you still can probably find cases if you look deep enough where that stuff happens.
So yeah, I want people to, when they're thinking about that thing, take the person's, personal context and the larger historical social context into account. It's not the same all the time. It does, both of them change dramatically. And you can't ignore that, or you will be confused as to why they didn't act earlier, I suppose.
Yeah, no, because this whole quote unquote social justice warrior thing that people like to rag on, it's not that old. Again, I have to lean on my experience, but I remember the 80s and the 90s, male machismo and stuff like that. I mean, our president, the reason he acts the way he acts is partially because the 80s and 90s lend more to men behaving that way. Being the man's man and all of that. And, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to go out and conquer and have as many women as we want and all of that. Men now, people, they think a lot different. That shit's not as cool as it was. Sure, there's still some threats to that, but it's not as strong and it's not as cool as it was back then to be the guy who, did all that stuff and got away with it, and the whole a woman staying in her place thing, that shit grew old now. It's not the same. You know what I mean? Again, you'll find in pockets, but it's not the norm. It's not the norm like it was back in the day.
Right. Even what you mentioned earlier about, people telling you to keep your feelings to yourself. We have increasingly become more accepting of men, having emotions at all.
Yeah.
It is a radical departure. I even remember my dad, I was not extremely emotional, but I remember once when I was a kid or something, overhearing him question my manhood or something, because growing up in this generation and with these types of influences, which it's weird because I beat him in a fight once, but just that's only one generation removed, right? And I can tell his conception of masculinity versus mine is pretty different.
Yeah, no. find myself in a weird place with a lot of my constituents, people I went to high school with, grew up around, and all that, because you know I consider myself to be a lot more of a leaning towards like your generation, your time, in a lot of things rather than to my time, because it was like I was telling a friend before. They were talking about we were talking about something that had to do with gay people working someplace. I forget what it was, but they still had that mentality. It's like, it sucks that I gotta, get training on how to be sensitive and not be basically a jerk around these people. And I'm in my mind, it's like, why would you want to be a jerk? Why are you upset about that? About treating someone fair?
You're right.
But we didn't. It wasn't like the gay kid was a novelty back when I was in high school. It was that you had a couple, and you were like, "Oh, look at the gay kid." You weren't necessarily mean to them, but at the same time, they weren't necessarily someone that you would want to be associated, especially as a male, especially as a black male, because
I was
black
about to say,
men have a serious problem with that.
it's strong.
But it was okay if you were a woman and hung out with a gay guy, because that's cool for you, But it would be, being able to be like, okay, he's gay, that's cool, do your thing. I'm, who am I to judge? No, you were supposed to fuck with the gay person, and you were supposed to judge them, And even in my time, it's like, I graduated from high school. Shit, I'm gonna tell my age. Fuck you guys who had something to say. But I graduated from high school in 1994. 1994 is not that long. That's, like you said, it's a generation away.
Yeah.
And we're now getting to a point where we're still fighting for gay, lesbian rights, but we're in a better place where they have a lot more, But back in the 90s, please, it was like, again, unless you would the novelty person in the movie, like look at the gay man act gay, or look at the stuff like that, or the taboo, oh, two women are kissing, that's hot type of thing.
Yeah.
Bullshit. That shit didn't fly.
I don't see as much of that nowadays, come to think of it. I didn't ever notice that till you mentioned it, like the whole girl on girl.
No, it was like back when I was growing up, like if you saw somebody gay kissing, like two guys kiss, you were supposed to be outraged and disgusted. Or if you saw two women, if you were a guy, you were supposed to like, yeah, that's so hot. And like now it's just like whatever. Like fucking half of my friends are lesbians, and we just talk like we're like normal. Like I don't be like, ooh, look, you kissing your girlfriend. No, what?
Right.
What the fuck?
I think that's why on some of these social issues I might sound, hopefully I don't sound like I'm riding the fence or playing both sides. I like to think that I'm sounding balanced, but I think we talked about it with like the that thing we did with the black people thing once, where I mentioned one of the things I don't necessarily like about a lot of these people is that they don't seem to appreciate just how far we've come. And on the flip side, to the opposition, I always say, like, as far as we've come, it hasn't been that long. So as many advances as we've made with a lot of these social groups, you should not take for granted that I say that the advances were fast, and that's impressive, but they were fast. It was not that long ago that people were killing gay people, that people were racism was a lot more noticeable than it is now. It still exists. Sexism and stuff. We've made amazing strides, but in like 20, 30 years, 40 years, women couldn't even vote until like, what, 50, 60 years ago? What's the year? It's 2017.
Yeah, so it's been about, what, the 30s, 40s, maybe?
Yeah.
It wasn't that too long before eventually, like, minorities got the right. You know what I mean? It wasn't like it was a huge, like, gap. Again, it was maybe a generation before that changed. It's like, it takes a long time for things to roll over.
Yeah, so it might sound paradoxical, but I want people to appreciate the advances we've made, but also know that, don't become so overconfident, because they're pretty new one advances.
Yeah.
Especially if you're younger, you might be a little too used to living in certain time periods and not appreciate that it was different the previous generation. or two.
Yeah, no, I know it's really like cliche and annoying for old people to say you young people don't realize how good you have it, but you should appreciate how good you have it when you look back because
Right.
yeah, that shit was really fucked up. Again, I've being in my 40s, I feel like I've been blessed to see a lot of huge leaps, in a lot of areas in the world, be it technology, be it socially, things like I mean, guys, internet wasn't a thing until I was about to graduate high school. Think about that. You guys, the internet is just like so prevalent. It's just like going back to the net neutrality thing, where now it's like we're worried about the government repealing net neutrality so that these companies can dictate to us how and when we use our internet. There was a point where nobody had access outside of the government to it, and it wasn't,
Right.
the wealth of knowledge couldn't be shared with the world. And like now we have that access. It's a common date. I couldn't, like, even that, even coming from decades of not having the internet, I can't imagine not having the internet myself. I know you guys couldn't imagine what the fuck life was like not having internet. Like, good lord.
I can barely imagine what it is like without my cell phone because like this is one of the few pieces of technology I really got to see kind of evolve because I look at I have the S7, I guess, Samsung. My old phone, my first phone was like 8-bit, didn't black and I
Right.
want to say white, whatever the fuck it was. It was not this. Like I couldn't watch movies and Netflix and do all the shit I can do with this phone. It within like 5 to 10 years, this thing has gone light years. It's crazy.
Dude, I remember my mom got her first cellular phone. It was like that flip phone. And everybody was amazed that Motorola made a phone that the front of it flipped down so you could talk, as opposed to the original cell phones that look like fucking walkie-talkies.
Yeah.
Like it's just it's crazy. It's just like yeah, but going back to the social part of it, it's just like, yeah, a lot of things have gone and changed tremendously in my 42 years of life. And that's not a long time on this planet. So yeah,
I brought that up because I'd seen a couple times. You see people make these arguments when it comes to women's rights and safety and stuff like that. You women have come so far. You're doing all this stuff. You have all this power. Why are you acting like victims and shit? And yes, they have come in fucking amazingly far. It's from like not being able to vote to where they are now. It's impressive. But again, like misogyny doesn't disappear overnight because more women have jobs and shit and like educations. Like there's no reason to think that it should. It is better, I would argue, but no reason to think it should be eliminated or that women aren't still being sexually victimized around the world and in America as well. There's no good reason to act like it shouldn't be a problem.
no, I mean, going back to Robert Moore, look at him. He's an older white male who comes from a time period where you were taught to treat women that way. Um, that it was he comes from the man's right, when it comes to women, type of way of thinking and all that. And like those people are still out there, and there's still people who have learned it. Again, going back to my generation, there are people within my generation who are still strongly tied into that old school mentality, and who are probably teaching it to their children, whose children are probably teaching it to their children. So, there's still people out there who would rather perpetuate that type of way of living.
Definitely.
They're not gone. They're not totally disappeared. They're not dinosaurs. They haven't become totally extinct yet. You
Yes.
know?
But all that stuff said, there are a few things that concern me. So I'm happy to, as I look at all these articles and stuff coming out, I am happy to say that most of them seem, reasonable. All of them, really. Like, the guy clearly did something wrong, and at least half the country is crucifying them for it. No offense, Republicans, but step your game up. I remember one thing I had thought of because, I mentioned there are problems with liberals, and one of the things is they have a hard time making any kind of distinctions. So I remember thinking like, I'm waiting for one of these stories to be, maybe somebody said something kind of lewd or something. 'Cause I've seen with some of these issues where people don't, especially sex, people don't seem to make distinctions between maybe being rude or gross in a comment versus like raping somebody. And
Yeah.
in the extreme cases, you hear some, uh, if you ever read what is that book called, Who Stole Feminism? The author uh, categorizes two types of feminists, who she calls gender and equity feminists. You see at the extreme with like gender feminists who are very extreme. They'll say things like, all sex is rape, or they'll call rape and sexual assault like umbrella terms that seem to encapsulate everything. And I always worry about that group in particular, jumping in on this current wave of, sexual allegations because they do not distinguish very well. And I'm not saying like, making lewd comments where a woman is okay. So nobody walk away thinking that. I'm saying we have to be able to distinguish between doing that and assaulting a minor sexually, or forcing yourself, or coercing through uh, either violence or financial means. There's different ways to be an asshole, and they're not all equal. Is one way to say that. And this is one of the problems the liberals always have, is they don't distinguish, and it makes it easy to not take them fucking seriously when it comes to certain social issues.
Yeah, and I think that's why you get a lot of them who, when something happens where it's involving someone like Al Franken, there's like a hard like jam on the brakes, like, oh wait, what, we did this?
Right.
And it's just like, a reluctance to back it, because you see, I don't know if you saw, but Elizabeth Warren was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to ask for Al Franken to quit yet or not, because she's kind of, she's one of the people who, I love Elizabeth Warren to death, but she's kind of one of the really hardball characters when it comes to the things that conservatives do. And to her credit, she did come out with the whole, yeah, I thought Hillary did something to try to manipulate the DNC, but even she's probably Al Franken is a close personal friend of hers. Of course, she's going to hit the brakes and be like, wait, well, maybe she's going to kind of shuffle on that, because there's certain people, like, again, Hillary is the oddball out when it comes to liberalism, because don't nobody like her. But when it comes to the like quote unquote likable ones, yeah, you don't want to pile in.
Even in Franken's case, I don't want to say glad because I'm not glad of what he did, but I'm glad that what he did was at least wrong when it got criticized. Because my first thought was like, when I saw the headlines, Franken wouldn't do anything crazy, so they must be getting him for, saying something rude because he was a comedian at one time, or
right,
things that aren't at the same level as what he actually did and above. But so I'm glad I haven't seen too much of that, but it does still concern me because, again, this is one of liberals' weak points. They cannot fucking distinguish between, something like incredibly horrible versus something mildly horrible. These are the same people that will like attack you if you use the wrong gender pronoun or something like that. You know what I mean? There's some people who go to extremes, and they might be a minority, but they're very vocal, and they concern me. With Black Lives Matter is a good example. There are some people who define racism as shit so broad it catches pretty much everything imaginable. And when you look at people's on the right's reaction to that, they don't take the movement as seriously as they should, because they're referencing people like that who will call anything racist. They undermine the importance of the actual movement. Because I might agree that there's a problem with police brutality, but it is easy to dismiss that when you're looking at the psychos of those groups who cannot approach any of this stuff with nuance or intelligence or reasonableness or anything like that. So I fear a certain subsection of feminists getting in on this situation and making it, because it's very serious. I do want this talk to continue that we're having, but I, like, in the back of my mind, like in the corner of my eye, I'm still waiting for them to like pop up and like fuck it up.
Yeah, and that's a deep fear that I hope doesn't come to pass.
It probably doesn't help that I just recently read that book, Who Stole Feminism? It's by Christina Hoff Sommers, if anybody wants to pick that up. But, she had mentioned that group of feminists coming in and just making a disgrace of the feminist movement altogether. So when people, you have a lot of people who won't identify as feminists. I'm pretty sure it's because they are thinking of the word feminist. When they think of that word, they're associated with like those kind of extreme people. There's a group of them who say things like gender is completely a social construct, right? Like the pink and blue theory of feminism, if people are aware of that type of thing. That I can't remember the quote, but it was a funny one. But that boys and girls aren't any different at all, and society just completely molds them. Shit like that. They'll have some fairly extreme claims about the nature of gender. Claims that are not correct in a biological sense in some cases. Claims that are a bit of a reach at best. And when you have them, like, there's a reason. A lot of people, I'm fine with saying that I'm a feminist, right? Because in general, I support women's rights and shit like that. But I know why a lot of people would say no. A lot of women will not say that they are feminists because of people like them, who are that loud minority who say a bunch of crazy shit.
Yeah, which it ends up defeating the purpose, definitely.
Yes.
And in this, go ahead.
I was gonna say in this, because I don't know if we hear about it as much now, but we had been hearing for months, maybe a couple of years, about this these liberal waves on college campuses where, they're all freaking out about pretty minor things. I don't want this is like the bad environment for this shit to start popping up now, because that group of college fuckers could really run wild with this kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, people on all sides, though, people will overdo. That's just what we do. It's some type of weird part of human nature that there's just always going to be that part of humanity that's going to go way overboard on something and hurt the idea that this is something serious. It should be taken serious.
Yeah, I'd say they make the conversation difficult, because if they expand the notion of sexual assault or rape or anything too wide, and you disagree with that, they could just call you sexist, which is, one of the major talking points she had in that book was when it started to really take over on college campuses, people might disagree with their points, but they would start calling them sexist, right? So that would like hurt their careers. People would start attacking them because, as far as anybody knew, they were just sexist. Right. This and like race and shit like that become very volatile talking points, because at least on the left, it becomes an instinct to call people racist or sexist or homophobic and so on. But I probably dwelled on that point a little much. Like I said, I'm glad to see it's not becoming a problem just yet. I hope it stays not a problem.
Yeah, hopefully so. But just to wrap this up, what are your final thoughts on the whole situation? What would you leave as your final, I guess, thought or your desire? What you would like people to take away from all of this?
You go first. Got me off guard. I don't like to think.
It's fine. No, it's just like for me, it's kind of just reflective of what you just said. Like you have to make sure not to go into hyper overdrive and over exaggerate things. I mean, this is a serious issue and it's a topic that needs to continually be discussed and taken serious, but at the same time, just don't be that person. Don't be that person to take the conversation to a place where it doesn't need to go to, and be reasonable. I mean, again, all these allegations, all these people who've been accused of things, it's okay to be upset and be angry to hear that these people potentially did these things. But remember that, you can't take every simple thing and just like amp it to 1,000, because there will be a situation where someone may have been false, and then it's going to go amp to the the umpteenth degree the other way, and it's just like gonna like it's gonna short fuse the argument. And that's not what you want. You want to try to be as fair and as rational with your argument as possible. I know that's hard to ask people these days, but that's what you would hope, that we keep it this way, because it's hard to get things solved if you're not going to attend to them in a rational, reasonable way. It's hard to come to a consensus that way to me.
Right. I don't know how we would get there, but I hope that this becomes less of a partisan issue, with the right not taking it as seriously as they should. I'm relatively pleased with the way the left handles this so far. They are taking it seriously, and they're not, at least as far as I can tell at the moment, taking it too far, which I'm very pleased with. But the right, seriously, stop.
I had to knock on wood.
Yeah, yes. The right is seriously lacking in their in the way that they're responding to this. It's pathetic, and it hurts our sense of pride and security and confidence in our government when apparently all you need to do is have the right letter by your name, in this case an R, and you can get away with whatever the fuck you want. That's a huge problem. And like you mentioned, I want us to be able to approach these issues with logic and reason and compassion. Obviously, there's a lot of victims here getting lost in this conversation, and I care deeply about them. And part of caring deeply is being able to approach these conversations seriously and with subtlety. A lot of times, when I mentioned a lot of people getting carried away, one of the consequences with when people get carried away with this type of stuff, a consequence is that they tend to shift attention away from the actual victims. They start getting off on these crazy tangents and start arguing about stupid shit, and then we lose sight of the actual victims, in this case, victims of sexual assault and misconduct and whatnot. So, keep our eye on the prize and talk about this stuff with rationality and compassion.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
All right, so that's going to do it for this holiday week edition. Hope we didn't depress you too much. Hopefully you can eat your turkey or ham or whatever you're going to eat. I myself am not eating traditional Thanksgiving dinner this year because I didn't feel like cooking. And I got to work this weekend, so I have to figure out what I'm going to cook.
Spaghetti.
I feel like Thanksgiving seafood is appropriate. Yeah. That would be really, really good. Really, really good.
I was going to say ramen or something if you want like a really depressing Thanksgiving.
No, I'm not going to sit here eating. No, really depressing would be for me to actually go out and sit alone in like a restaurant that's actually open and eat dinner. Making people who shouldn't be working on Thanksgiving. By the way, I find it very bad that they open restaurants now on Thanksgiving. I understand not everybody wants traditional food on Thanksgiving, and some people don't want to cook, but god damn it. Find another way other than making people work on Thanksgiving. And don't go shopping on a goddamn Thanksgiving either. Jeez, I hate that too. I hate that they start opening stores on that Thursday.
Before we hop off, last note on that net neutrality shit. What the fuck is with these guys? Like, who wants that? Why are we always doing this shit? Like,
the companies. It's the companies. It's simply like, okay, so really quick. Let me do a little brief overview of net neutrality. Basically, net neutrality, it's a law that prevents companies from being able to dictate what companies and consumers that connect to their ISPs. It keeps them from being able to dictate to them what sites, what activities that they can do overall. It's like, sure, there's certain things like illegally downloading shit. Yeah, you're supposed to block that shit. But things like for us gamers, downloading digital content, or for people who have Netflix, being able to use your full bandwidth to watch HD movies. It gives these companies that provide ISPs the control to limit and gate how much bandwidth is being used. And they can actually go to these other companies like Netflix, like PlayStation, and Xbox, and their networks, and tell them if you want, the full abilities, you're gonna have to pay us extra, which will eventually lead to consumers having to pay extra too, because they can also be like, well, flip it. As consumers, in order to access this stuff, you need to get a certain grade of internet where we allow this, or like certain they can tier who gets in and who gets out, what companies can, because a lot of these companies that own and distribute ISPs, they're multimedia companies like Comcast, like Time Warner, which provides content, and things like Netflix is competition for them, because a lot of people have started to cut the cable. Cable TV is not as big as it used to be. The internet is the thing. All these streaming services, they can potentially throw a monkey wrench in these companies' works and make it very expensive for them, meaning making those things very expensive for us, meaning making it so that they can create a market to where you're better off going to them for everything than to go on to an outside source. So it's market manipulation of the internet, basically.
I get why businesses want that. I mentioned earlier that people don't have faith in the government. Shit like that. When I saw that, I thought about, Trump's like lifting that ban on like elephant heads coming into the country or whatever, with you hunt them and shit. Right. Like the type of shit, like who is asking for this stuff? You just look like an asshole doing this. Like no regular citizen wants shit like this.
Yeah, that bothers me the most, because it's like, are you a fan of the illegal poaching market now? Like, because a lot of these countries that they go to, they don't want them killing these things like that. They want regulation. But now you're giving poachers the excuse to be like, oh, okay, I'm going to go shoot like a ton of elephants and bring their tusk over here, like, and be protected by the law, because it's okay to have that shit here. So I just need to like get away with the murder. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to jump at that. It's just government should, at least somewhat serve the will of the people. And there's examples like this where it's like nobody wills that. Nobody but like companies want that type of shit. Sorry.
No, but you have a very valid point. It is like up to us. That's why you're seeing all these people talking about it on social media, asking you to get into these petitions and to call your, like local congressman, and to contact the courts and things like that and write them and let the law know that this is not something that you want, because you're looking at a situation where things that are already as expensive as possible. I mean, cable companies, even with net neutrality, have been able to price gouge their consumers for, decades. And giving them this will allow them to just totally do whatever the fuck they want. They have certain limitations, but this would just blow the doors wide open and let them be able to behave in like the most horrible ways. And you don't want that as a consumer. You want to fight this. I know a lot of people who talk about it through content creator eyes. Hell, for us doing this podcast, think about how it would be if YouTube had to decide, you know what, it's expensive for us to exist by allowing people to stream because these cable companies are hitting us. So we're going to have to now charge you a monthly fee to be able to stream. Things like that.
Right.
You don't want that, because you won't be able to get people to do these podcasts that you like, or to do the like live stream gaming and things like that, or other discussion pieces. It will cut off a lot of creativity. It will cut off a lot of access for people to certain materials. It would make things like horrible.
I don't know. I don't know who the fuck you are trying to please with this decision other than businesses, but I don't know. Anyway, fun Thanksgiving.
Yes. So yeah, please fight this. By the way, speaking of content creating, the video will be coming. I'm getting the dance a little better now. It's still horrible. I will be doing the garden dance. So yeah, we're having progress. I just really need to clean my apartment now and clear space so I can like have leg room to fuck up. But that will be coming to My birthday's coming up, by the way, people. And what I've asked for my birthday on social media is that people go to my Extra Life link, or if you have a connection to me on Facebook, I have a Children's Miracle Network donation campaign set up. Just trying to raise another $200 for charity for my birthday. That's the present that I want from people. I can ask for, games, all types of stuff, but actually, I just want you guys to donate to charity if you feel the need to do something.
For my birthday, I want other people to. What an asshole! Oh my god.
I mean, hey, sure. Could I use the money myself? Of course. But I just want to see.
I feel bad even calling you an asshole because it's like for sick kids. I feel like if it was for sick adults, I feel more comfortable calling you an asshole right now. But
I know, and that's the beauty of this, because now I can socially guilt you motherfuckers into doing it.
Shit is fucked up.
No, but seriously, that would be really cool if you guys could do that. Do that for me. I'd appreciate it. Yeah.
Dick.
I try not to be. Okay, come on.
I did not think my mic would pick that up, but yeah.
It's okay. I've been called worse. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. We appreciate it. You guys have a happy, safe holiday. And we will see you next time on The Reason Reborn. So, as always, feel free to hit me up. Let me know what you think, and I'll holler at you later. This is your boy, Black Megas, and I'm out, y'all. Deuces. You happy now?
Yes.
Later.